Hi, I'm Kim, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and what's being shared around the world right now on NewsFeed today. Fake news is spreading in the wake of Indonesia's earthquake and tsunami. NewsFeed is on the ground with the latest. He's overtly sexist and homophobic. So why then is Brazil getting behind presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro? Why Afghanistan is the most dangerous country in the world to be a journalist. And could this be the best animals doing stuff ever? Meet the anteater who's allergic to nuts. I mean ants. People who survived Friday's earthquake and tsunami in Indonesia are now being confronted with fake news, which is not only exploitative, but in some cases is also dangerous. More than 1,400 people were killed in the disaster. Now people are desperately scavenging for supplies and trying to build their own makeshift shelters. Without power, people are relying on word of mouth for information, which is being distorted by those who have something to gain from fake news. Bruce Harrison sent us this.
As the Indonesian government struggles to get aid to desperate people in the city of Palu and other areas hit hard by the tsunami and earthquake, it's fighting another battle, that against fake news, or hoax news, as it's called in Indonesia. The government has been debunking reports, including that a magnitude 8.1 earthquake would strike central Sulawesi province, that families in Palu could get free flights out of the city for their families, and that the Bilibili Dam had major cracks and could burst at any moment. The government says scammers create these stories and hope they spread in order to stir up more fear and lure people from their homes only to return and rob them later. The government said it's not hard for fake news to spread like this during a disaster because people have no means of proper communication. With electricity down, they can't charge cell phones and find out what's true or not online and through news sources. These stories simply spread by word of mouth. Another apparent hoax I heard many times while I was in the city of Palu, that city's mayor had been killed in the waves of the tsunami.
Okay, let's take a look now at some other things that caught our eye on social media. Getting the perfect selfie has cost 259 lives in the past 6 years. Researchers wanted more info on what's known as selfie deaths, people who've been killed while taking a selfie. So they scoured international news reports using keywords and found a staggering 72% of those killed were men, and that selfie takers in India were most at risk. Marian Sujnait, co-founder of Death Row Records, will spend 28 years in prison for running over a guy he'd had a fight with. In 2016, Knight had some sort of blow-up with Terry Carter near the set of a promo for the film Straight Outta Compton. Police said the running over was on purpose. He's going along with manslaughter, and he'll be out in 2046. This photo, shared by father of three Dante Palmer, has sparked the hashtag Squat for Change. He was out and needed to change his 1-year-old son, so went to the men's restrooms. Finding no change tables, decided to pop a squat to get the job done. He says the fact that there are no change tables in men's facilities speaks to the deeply ingrained gendered roles that society promotes. I think he's right. So share your squats, dads, and get the change tables for both mums and dads in those changing rooms. Brazilian presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro is controversial. He once told a woman in public that he wouldn't rape her because she wasn't worthy of it. He told a newspaper he could never love a homosexual son, and he believes the gender pay gap is justified. So why then, if he's alienating so many people, is he leading the polls ahead of this weekend's election? In the first of a two-part series, we're breaking it down. Here's Kamali.
Brazil goes to the polls on Sunday to choose a new president. And one of the most likely candidates to win is the far-right, Jair Bolsonaro. But many non-Brazilians are asking the same question. How can such an ethnically diverse country be about to elect a far-right president? Basically, deep-rooted economic and security-based problems. And people wanted quick solutions. That's where Bolsonaro gains his support, with his fast and simple ideas like putting more guns into the hands of more Brazilians.
It's much more related to a conservative society, a society that wants to get fast and quick and immediately solutions for some problems like public security.
They're basically young, wealthy, male, educated, privileged, and from the middle class. And they want to maintain their position of privilege at the expense of quimbolas. But counterintuitively, Bolsonaro also has some support from those same people.
Basically, the lower classes, they are very worried. One of the biggest points of the agenda here is the public security in the country. So the answers that Bolsonaro is proposing, with more severe penalties for those committing crimes, the possibility of the population to arm themselves, to be more strict with the rule of law, especially regarding crimes that affect the direct life of the people. So the population that's suffering from that, they find in him a sort of answer for the situation.
Brazil is a conservative Christian country, and only 4% of it believes in other religions. Bolsonaro's hard rhetoric against abortion, non-Christians, homosexuals, and communists gets support among Brazilian evangelicals, and their membership has grown dramatically in recent years. And as this has grown, nationalistic ideas and beliefs have grown too.
A discourse of nationalism, this idea that we need to look at Brazil and to in some way, let's compare, make Brazil strong again, show how big Brazil is to the world.
He doesn't seem to have a clear economic program. He's known as an ultra-neoliberal, but his nationalism also could result in protective policies. This could lead to instability of both the economy and society, leaving Brazil in a worse situation than it currently is.
A sort of unpredictable, moralist politician that will try to govern with strong hand and trying to say that I can solve the problems of Brazil. So I don't think that we would have a clear and coherent governance, both for Brazil, for the region, and for the globe.
Now, another factor that we'll go in depth into tomorrow is that Bolsonaro is also big on fighting crime, and that's a drawcard for many voters, like Clayton Cesar Sobral, who explains it in his own words.
My name is Clayton Cesar Sobral. The candidate Bolsonaro opened my eyes to politics. I didn't used to care much for politics like most people these days. I'm black, poor, young. I have all the criteria of someone who would vote for the Workers' Party. But they stole so much from Brazil.
Eles roubaram tanto Brasil, me deu essa segurança.
Bolsonaro gave me confidence and hope because he does what he says.
O que ele fala e o que ele faz. Quando ele fala
when he says he wants to clean the streets of criminals, he's right.
Eu acho que ele tem razão.
Honestly, I'm 24 years old, and I lost 7 friends who entered a life of crime. In less than a year, they were dead.
Quer ser bandido? Vai ser bandido.
I want my son to grow up in a safe country.
In this era of fake news, fear-mongering and challenges to democracy, journalism and journalists are more important than ever. But in many countries, it's dangerous work. In Afghanistan, journalists are not only getting caught up in violence, they're becoming targets themselves.
Afghan reporters are dying in record numbers to report the conflict in Afghanistan. So far this year, 14 have been killed, making Afghanistan the deadliest in the world for media workers. More dangerous than Mexico, Yemen, and even Syria.
In the past few months, we've seen 2 attacks where they specifically will wait for journalists and first responders to come on the scene, and then they'll stage another attack. There's also the fear of just being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Terrorism isn't the only threat they're facing.
But you also see many instances within government forces where they can use violence, they can use intimidation, they can use threats, or just sort of even in their demeanor, this sense of derision towards journalists and this suspicion of journalists.
Khalida Rashid, a reporter at Afghanistan's first all-female station, Zan TV, told us she also faces the added challenge of gender-based discrimination. Despite that, like many journalists in the country, she's determined to stay and keep doing what she does.
وطنم از عشق می‌ورزم و این مرا واداشته تا در کشور به نام افغانستان زندگی کنم. خب ای که حالا ما در افغانستان هستم، ما آمدیم که گلو و صدای او زنا باشیم، صدایی که خفته بوده و سالیان سال.
All right, let's go around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Thursday. Russian hackers are sowing chaos around the world, that's according to the British government. London says it has proof cyber attacks were launched on orders from Putin himself, including the hacking of the DNC in the run-up to the 2016 US election. It says Russia's GUR intelligence service is totally ignoring international law in a bid to surreptitiously shape world events. Of course, it comes off the back of the Skripal saga. You'll remember these two Russian agents were blamed for poisoning a former Russian spy, Sergei Skripal, in the UK. Now, it appears Putin is over it and lost his rag with a reporter who asked him about it.
I see that some of your colleagues are pushing the theory that Mr. Skripal was almost some kind of human rights activist. He's just a spy, a traitor of the motherland. There is such a concept. He was one of those. Imagine you're a citizen of your own country. Then you have a man who betrays his own country. How will you or anyone sitting here, representative of any country, take him? He's simply a scumbag, that's all.
Okay, so gender reveal parties are weird enough as it is, right? But this one really takes the cake. A guy in Arizona wanted his to be so badass that he was like, hey, why don't I get my rifle and shoot at a target that will then explode either blue for a boy or pink for a girl? And why don't I also make that target contain highly explosive material for like a really brilliant bang? But the explosion started a fire. You're seeing the flames here. It spread across 47,000 hectares and into the Colorado National Forest. Now he's got to pay $8 million back to the state. And finally, the story of Matilda the anteater, who is by some rare genetic fluke allergic to ants. Take a look.
Noticed when she was about 2 years of age that she started getting some really puffy eyes. They were really pink and they looked quite sore and uncomfortable. And we did some tests with our vet department and they were able to determine that she had some allergies to ants in particular and also to native plants.
It's all looking nice and clear at this point in time, but it's quite unusual for an echidna to be allergic to their main food group.
That's all from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions at Kim Vanel. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Follow, subscribe, we'll see you tomorrow.